We all have them, don't we? Those little escape hatches. The mental narratives we build when reality just gets a bit too sharp.
Too heavy.
Yeah, or too demanding. It could be, clinging to a job that really peaked 5 years ago. Or maybe it's staying in a relationship that honestly costs you more than it gives back.
And you tell yourself a story about it.
You tell yourself a story that things are fine, that change is just around the corner, or that all this suffering is for some, greater guaranteed reward in the future.
That flicker of self-deception, that little trick we play on ourselves, it isn't just a casual defense mechanism. The source material we've been digging into for this deep dive is, well, it's just fascinating.
It really is.
It suggests that we adopt 10 specific, very intricate self-deceptions. The original source actually calls them ishtihat, and they become this kind of hidden operating system for our lives.
Okay, let's unpack that term for a second, ishtihat. We're translating it here as self-deceptions, but the nuance is really important, isn't it? It suggests something less like a simple lie and more like a preoccupation, or maybe an engagement with a false premise.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. You're actively engaged with it.
And the core premise, the thing that immediately grabbed me from the source, is that we actively choose to believe things that are, frankly, unbelievable. We rely on these totally ineffective promises and call them wisdom.
And why?
Simply because the alternative, the necessary truth, is just too difficult, too painful, or maybe just too demanding to actually execute.
So we adopt these comforting lies.
Right, just so we, and this is a quote, know how to live as if we were living.
As if. That's the key.
Yeah.
We're essentially trading the pain of disciplined action for the comfort of what the source calls a decorated illusion.
A decorated illusion, I like that.
And our mission today is to strip away that comforting veneer. We're going to look at these 10 specific tricks we play on ourselves. We're going to expose why they are so psychologically appealing.
And crucially,
what the difficult, necessary, and often painful reality is for each one. We are here today to choose the pain of truth over the comfort of deception.
that feels like the necessary choice, really, if we want any kind of genuine progress.
It is.
Well, I think I'm ready to embrace the pain. Let's start with part 1, which deals with how we approach internal healing and effort. We're going to begin with what is maybe the most frequently recited, the most socially acceptable, and because of that, probably the most dangerous lie of all. The moment something deeply painful happens, a loss, a betrayal, a huge disappointment, someone almost inevitably offers that soothing phrase.
You know what's coming.
Don't worry, time will take care of everything, or just let time cure it. It sounds so passive, so safe. It suggests all we have to do is just wait. Let the calendar tick off enough days, and poof, the problem vanishes.
It's the ultimate comforting lie, isn't it? Because it completely removes our agency. It takes away our active responsibility as the wounded person. It implies that healing is this naturally occurring automatic process.
Yeah.
Like evaporation or something. But the source makes a really critical distinction here.
Yeah.
That, well, it completely reframes the nature of psychological recovery.
Okay, what's that?
It says, time only heals superficial scratches. If the wound is deep, if it cuts into your core sense of self, your trust, your vision of the future, then time acts strictly as an anesthetic or a sedative.
That distinction between numbing and curing that's absolutely vital. Because if time is just a sedative, it means that while the acute, immediate burning pain fades, the underlying structural damage is still there. It hasn't been fixed. So what is time actually doing in that period of sedation if it's not fixing the core issue?
It's creating distance. It's forcing you to forget the small, immediate, granular details of what happened.
Like the exact words of the argument.
The exact words, the sound of the voice, what the room looked like, all those little details fade. But the source points out that while the details fade, time leaves you constantly questioning the cause, the deep, unresolved philosophical why of the event.
So you forget the what, but you're haunted by the why.
Precisely. Because the wound hasn't been confronted, hasn't been dissected and really understood properly, the underlying pain survives. It goes into hiding and then becomes mobile.
And this is where the deception gets so insidious. The wound, as the source says, transfers with you. It's not just a wound anymore. It's basically a parasite.
Absolutely. It's a perfect word for it. And we see this play out constantly. That unresolved betrayal from a parent. It transfers into a complete lack of trust in every romantic partner you meet down the line.
Or that unexamined failure in one business venture.
It transfers into this intense, paralyzing fear of taking any risks in the next one. The wound literally transfers from relationship to relationship, from one phase of your life to another, from one experience to the next.
You think you've moved on. You think you've left the trauma in the past.
I really believe it. But then that old mechanism, that defensiveness, that flight response, that tendency to self-sabotage, it suddenly just appears out of nowhere and poisons a totally new connection or a professional opportunity.
Time hasn't ended the past at all.
The past is simply living within you.
Right.
It's in a state of suspended animation, just waiting.
And the danger of this temporal sedation, this prolonged numbness, is that it gives us this profound but totally false sense of security. We convince ourselves the problem is gone, it's buried, it's resolved, until something completely innocuous, a specific memory, a word, a similar situation, even just a mood reawakens that past trauma.
And that's when you see the sudden collapse, the breakdown that feels completely and totally disproportionate to whatever is happening in the present.
Right, everyone around is thinking, why are they overreacting?
Because they're not reacting to the current event. That small trigger is only powerful because the massive, deep wound was never cleaned out and stitched up. It was just chemically sedated by the passage of time.
So the severity of the current reaction is just a reflection of the depth of the unresolved history.
Exactly. You are reacting not to what's happening now, but to the entire backlog of pain that time convinced you was gone.
Okay, so if we accept this painful truth that time is not the cure, then the difficult alternative has to be a much more active process than just waiting. What is the necessary action we have to take?
The alternative really requires two things: awareness and confrontation.
Okay.
First, the awareness is just that. It's the realization that time is merely a measure. It's a container for the healing process, but it's not an active ingredient itself.
And the second part, confrontation.
That requires brutal honesty with yourself. It means facing the wound directly. And this isn't just about mourning the loss. It's about giving yourself sufficient time, not the calendar's time, but psychological time, to actually understand it.
What does understanding it look like, though, in practical terms?
It involves exploring the precise cause, the impact it had on your fundamental beliefs about the world, about people, and then defining the lessons learned. You have to extract the data from the pain.
That takes a tremendous amount of energy, because confrontation means you're reliving the pain deliberately, but this time with a new purpose: analysis.
It absolutely does. It requires you to process the emotion while you're simultaneously extracting the data. You have to analyze the failure point.
So asking questions like, was this wound caused by my own naive expectation?
Yes. Or was it caused by someone else's actual malice? Or was it just simple circumstance, bad luck? Until you have clarity on the cause, the lesson isn't integrated and the wound remains vulnerable. The process is painful because you are intentionally pulling the anesthesia out and working on the damaged area yourself.
And what's the ultimate promise of this difficult work, this forced confrontation? It's not just about relief, is it? It's a transformation of the memory itself.
Correct. When you treat a wound correctly, through that intentional awareness, the emotional processing, and the intellectual understanding, the wound won't hurt in the future. It leaves what the Source beautifully calls a scar, but a scar without pain.
So it's a historical landmark.
It's a historical landmark, a testament to survival and true resolution. You can look at that scar without fear, and importantly, you can teach others based on the knowledge you gained from that specific trauma. The scar serves as a permanent educational boundary. It signals survival, not ongoing victimhood.
All right, deception number 2, this one. This one hits close to home for anyone living in a productivity-obsessed society, particularly those of us who, glorify hustle culture.
It's a big one.
We are drilled with this mantra from a young age: work hard when you are young so you can rest when you are old. It's supposed to be this guaranteed moral formula for success. You put in the hours, you get the reward. Simple.
And it sounds so intrinsically honorable. I mean, effort is valuable. It demonstrates discipline and commitment. No one is arguing against effort itself.
Of course not.
But the discovery that so many people make later in life is that all that past effort didn't necessarily prevent future hardship or guarantee success.
It often just did what?
It often just conditioned us to accept hardship and exhaustion as the default state of living. The hard truth is, and this is difficult for a lot of people to swallow, sheer volume of effort by itself is not sufficient.
This is such a powerful distinction we need to make here. The difference between effort and achievement. Because the self-deception is confusing motion with progress.
Yes.
We deceive ourselves into believing that because we feel busy, because we're exhausted at the end of the day, we must be accomplishing something important.
And the sources provide a perfect, really visual analogy to break this down. Imagine walking 10 kilometers on a track, let's say running for hours on a gym treadmill.
Right.
That is immense effort.
Right. You're moving, you're sweating, your muscles are burning, you feel like you've done a huge amount of work.
But you haven't gone anywhere externally. You're constantly just circling around your starting point. Now, walking 10 kilometers out in the street and reaching a specific chosen destination, that is achievement.
The energy expended might be identical.
It could be exactly the same.
Yeah.
But the outcome and the directional value are completely different.
And that circling motion, that treadmill running, is the psychological concept the sources call unfocused effort. In Arabic, CSU and Janoke.
It's being intensely busy. You know, the 80-hour work week, the constant email checking, the frantic meeting schedule, but never actually breaking past the starting line of your major goals.
So why do we cling to it? Why is that unfocused effort so appealing?
Because intense activity is often a coping mechanism. It makes us feel necessary and worthwhile. It's a great way to mask a lack of directional purpose. It feels much better to brag, "I'm working 80 hours a week," than to ask the terrifying question.
Which is?
Am I achieving anything that truly moves me toward my stated goals, or am I just burning calories to avoid strategic thought?
Wow. It's the comfort of action over the difficulty of strategy.
That's it in a nutshell.
So the self-reflection required here is a moment of just brutal honesty about the ROI, the return on investment of your time and energy. We have to be merciless in asking, what specific measurable purpose are you exerting all this effort toward? And does the price you are paying in sleep and physical health and time away from your family, your mental peace, does it equal the return you are actually receiving in terms of objective progress?
And this connects directly to the analogy of quality standards that the source brings up. It asks a simple question. When you buy a quality phone or a car, or even just a nice piece of clothing, you judge its value based on what you paid for it.
Sure.
And what did you pay for it with? You paid for it with your time and your life, the hours you spent earning that money. So the source asks, shouldn't your life itself also be subject to these same quality standards?
If the work you are doing doesn't meet a high standard of return, if the path is circular, then you've essentially wasted a part of your finite life force.
And that is a heavy, heavy cost.
I have to challenge this, though, just a little. Because sometimes, especially when you're young or you're starting a new venture, you do have to put in some of that unfocused effort just to learn the landscape. You know, you have to walk on the treadmill for a while just to build the stamina for the real road trip.
That's a very fair point. And it's an essential distinction to make.
So how do we distinguish necessary building phase hard work from self-deceiving busyness?
I think building phase hard work is characterized by rapid learning and concrete skill acquisition, even if the progress isn't immediately visible to the outside world. You know you're getting better, faster, smarter.
Okay.
Self-deceiving busyness, on the other hand, is characterized by the repetition of the same unexamined tasks and the constant avoidance of difficult decisions.
So if you've been on the treadmill for 3 years and you are still doing the exact same tasks that yield the exact same marginal returns,
then you are deceiving yourself. You're trading strategy for the comfort of routine.
So the deception is thinking that sheer volume guarantees results.
Yeah.
The difficult alternative, the necessary pathway, it demands something far smarter, something more conscious.
It demands intelligent effort and smart work. This requires linking every action not just to a vague target, but to a crystal clear understanding of the why, the deep purpose behind the action. You must work, but the goal is to work directionally, strategically, and consciously.
Not to the extent of deceiving yourself into believing that sheer exhaustion means inevitable success.
You have to become the architect of your own effort, not merely the laborer.
All right, let's shift focus now. We're moving from the internal psychological battlefield of healing and effort to the relational one. And this is where the emotional lies we tell ourselves really start to shape almost intimate lives. And often they create this deep, completely unnecessary friction. Deception number 3 is, well, it's maybe the most pervasive one in romantic fiction, movies, music, all of it.
Yes. The romanticized lie that love is a magic wand, a universal fix-it-all serum. We believe that if our love is strong enough, or pure enough, or deep enough, it will fundamentally change the flawed person we are with. It'll fix their commitment issues, erase their bad habits, conquer their underlying pain.
It's the ultimate hopeful projection, isn't it? I know they're emotionally unavailable right now, but once they fully feel my love, they will be transformed into the devoted, stable partner I just know they can be.
And that belief is often deeply, deeply linked to our own self-worth.
Oh, so?
Well, if my love is powerful enough to change them, then my love must be truly invaluable. It creates a self-reinforcing narrative that feeds the ego of the rescuer.
The rescuer.
But the harsh reality, according to the source, is immutable. Love only changes those who have already decided to change from within.
So love can be, wow, a catalyst.
It can be an accelerant or a beautiful motivator for someone who is already on the path of self-improvement. But it is not the engine of change itself. That engine has to be self-awareness, personal will, and internal discipline.
This brings us to the formal psychological concept the source has identified, the illusion of emotional change. In Arabic, yenis illusion at the eskad. Why is this illusion so stubborn, particularly in relationships that are unstable?
Well, this illusion is extremely prevalent in relationships that fall into that classic rescuer and victim or fixer and project dynamic.
Right.
The rescuer often doesn't see themselves as weak. They often see themselves as uniquely strong because they believe they possess the key, their love, that everyone else has failed to find.
So they cling to these harmful relationships.
They do. Not out of passive weakness, but due to this false active conviction that their love alone will eventually fix the problem and transform their partner into the ideal version they've imagined.
So the core function of the deception is really to allow the rescuer to postpone facing reality. The reality that the relationship is fundamentally incompatible or unhealthy.
Exactly. They just keep focusing on the partner's potential rather than their current reality. They're in love with the idea of who that person might become one day, not who that person is today.
And the problem is, if the partner hasn't done that internal work,
if they haven't decided for themselves that they need to change, your deep love will only serve as a comfortable cushion for them.
oof.
It becomes a stable foundation upon which they can comfortably continue their destructive behavior. Your deep love inadvertently removes the necessary pressure for them to seek their own internal transformation.
But hold on, is there a scenario where someone truly inspires another person to begin that work? You know, a partner might say, I realized how much I loved them, and that was the thing that motivated me to finally go to therapy.
Inspiration is different from initiation. Love can absolutely be the trigger for the decision, the spark. But the decision itself, the painful commitment to therapy, the confrontation of demons, the change of habit, that must be owned entirely by the individual.
And if they stop doing the work,
The relationship falters, which demonstrates that love wasn't the fuel, it was merely the spark plug. The conclusion remains stark. No one changes another person. Love by itself is insufficient without the partner's internal will and their commitment to their own personal evolution.
okay, moving on to the painful flip side of relationship deception, how we internalize rejection and criticism. Because the human need for acceptance is so incredibly strong, rejection often leads us straight to self-injustice, a profound distortion of our own self-worth. If I'm rejected, if I'm not accepted into that group, or if that person leaves me, it must mean there is some fundamental flaw in me that needs fixing.
This is the classic trap of external validation. We outsource our worth to the subjective, often chaotic opinions of others. We give them the subjective power to define our value.
And when rejection happens,
We immediately enter the self-flagellating loop, trying to retrofit ourselves to match the external standard that just rejected us. But we have to learn to reframe rejection. Not every rejection indicates a flaw in you.
in fact, the sources suggest something truly provocative here, completely turning the conventional narrative on its head.
Which is,
That sometimes being rejected is actually an honor.
this is such a powerful and necessary shift in perspective. The source highlights a thought, referencing the philosopher Mohammed Khaled, that says, if some people love you, review yourself.
Wow. If some people love you, review yourself. What does that mean in practical terms?
It means that the approval of certain people whose standards are low, whose values are inherently contradictory to yours, or whose actions are self-serving or destructive, their approval must be a source of worry, not comfort.
That is a challenging idea, especially in a world that pushes for universal likability. So if a person known for their cynicism, their dishonesty, their cruelty, if they suddenly offer you their approval,
You need to pause. You need to analyze what you did to gain their acceptance, because you might have just compromised your own principles to align with their low standard.
so if you're accepted by a group known for behaviors you despise,
Then the rejection of that group should be a badge of honor. It affirms your commitment to your own higher standards. The difficult alternative to this self-deception, therefore, is establishing and adhering to your true internal standard. Doing what is right, M-Shi-san, completely independent of external approval.
But how do we avoid falling into this trap of self-righteous isolation? How do we differentiate between a justified rejection that affirms our standard and helpful constructive feedback that we should actually listen to?
I think the difference lies in the source and the substance. Constructive feedback usually comes from people whose character you admire, people who are operating from a place of care and who point to a specific action or a blind spot that is remediable.
And the other kind.
The rejection that's rooted in this idea of an honorable dismissal that often comes from people who require you to fundamentally violate your values or your makam to gain entry. The key is to check your internal compass. Did I betray my own sense of integrity to gain this person's approval? If the answer is no, then their rejection of your authentic self is actually validation.
Your value is not negotiable.
It's not negotiable based on who decides to accept or reject you today.
All right, this next deception catches all the good-hearted, generous, and earnest people, and it eventually leaves them feeling jaded, exploited, and just deeply disappointed.
The transactional trap.
The transactional trap. They believe that because they perform good deeds with a purity of intention, they are guaranteed a positive return, an equal reciprocity.
And when that reciprocity inevitably fails, when their generosity is met with entitlement or their kindness is met with poor treatment, they feel profoundly cheated.
Right. They ask, why should I even be good if this is how I'm treated? The transaction did not complete successfully.
They view their good actions as a currency that failed to buy them the happiness or respect they were expecting.
The expectation is that the world operates on their moral economy. But the source introduces this harsh external factor that completely overrides our internal good intentions.
And it is a harsh truth. People treat you according to their level of awareness, not according to the purity of your intention.
That is the crucial disconnect.
It is. Your intention is an internal state. It's pure, it's private, it's known only to you. Their awareness, their worldview, their emotional maturity, their capacity for recognition, their psychological state at that moment, their ability to regulate their emotions.
So if someone has a very low level of awareness, if they're highly stressed, narcissistic, or just deeply entitled, they may simply not see your good deed.
Or they might misinterpret it as weakness.
Or they might just feel entitled to it as their right. Your goodness doesn't even register in their system as a debt or a reason for a return. It just registers as an expectation.
Exactly. So relying on your intention as a shield against poor treatment is a form of self-deception. You're expecting people to operate on your internal standards, which they may not possess or even recognize. You are setting yourself up for perpetual disappointment by projecting your high Naya onto their low.
But wait a minute, if we accept this, aren't we just admitting that good deeds are pointless? Doesn't this just make us cynical and guarded? If people are going to treat me according to their low awareness anyway, why should I even bother exerting the effort to be kind?
And that is the necessary challenge that leads to the difficult alternative. The goal is not to stop being good. It's to fundamentally shift the reason for being good.
Okay.
The difficult alternative requires you to decouple your actions from the anticipated reaction.
Yeah.
You should choose to be good because it is your standard, your stature, your makam. It's your internal measure of being.
Muck, that's a fantastic word here. It translates roughly to station or standing. It's about your internal consistency.
Precisely. You are good because that is the quality of person you have decided to be, regardless of whether the world acknowledges it, thanks you, or reciprocates. Your goodness is for the elevation of your own makam, not for some market transaction.
So it's an act of self-definition.
It's an act of self-definition, not a negotiation with external forces. You maintain your standard of being, and you manage your expectations of others accordingly. And this shift is what protects you from feeling cheated, because you realize the external reaction is totally irrelevant to your internal moral decision.
We're moving now into a darker, but perhaps more necessary realm, confronting internal conflict and the nature of human morality. These next three deceptions reveal the moral shortcuts we take to maintain a false sense of peace, both within ourselves and in our relationships.
And this first one is one of the most significant pieces of moral self-deception we face. The common societal pressure, often reinforced by religious ideas or pop psychology,
Because that forgiveness is simple.
that it's a simple, mandatory moral obligation. We're told it's a quick button to press for our own liberation, a fast way to find internal peace by just letting go of resentment.
The moment you feel wronged, someone rushes in to tell you, just forgive and move on, for your own sake. But we know instinctively that forced forgiveness doesn't work. It just pushes the resentment deeper, where it festers and turns into this quiet, seething bitterness.
You're trying to forgive intellectually, while emotionally you are still screaming.
Exactly.
And the source validates that internal resistance. It states very clearly that the brain, our survival mechanism, cannot genuinely forgive until it feels safe.
Wholesome. So it's a biological reality, not a moral failing.
It's not a moral failing.
Right.
Forgiveness is not a mandatory duty imposed from the outside. It is an internal voluntary act that requires a foundation of established security. If you forgive someone who is still actively harming you or who presents a future viable threat, you are violating your own deep-seated need for safety. And the brain will resist that violation.
So feeling physically, emotionally, or psychologically safe is the absolute precondition. If you haven't established clear boundaries, if you haven't removed yourself from the threat, or if you haven't ensured the aggressor cannot repeat the action,
then the brain will resist forgiveness as a necessary survival-based mechanism. It's trying to protect you.
Precisely. The goal isn't to achieve peace by overriding your intuition, but by achieving peace through establishing boundaries. And this understanding reframes the boundaries of true forgiveness entirely.
It does. The difficult alternative dictates 3 boundaries for this. First, forgive only when you are truly ready, not on some forced timeline. Second, forgive without emotional blackmail or pressure. OC at 8th line. No one should be able to mandate your emotional process.
And third,
and this is key, forgive without the self-harm of returning to a painful situation or abusing yourself in the process of trying to achieve that internal peace.
I have to push back here, though. If you wait until you feel completely safe, doesn't that mean you might carry that resentment for decades? Poisoning your own well. Isn't holding on to anger and bitterness inherently toxic?
Resentment is absolutely toxic, yes. But the source makes it clear. Toxic resentment stems from unresolved injustice coupled with internal self-betrayal. The truly toxic thing is forcing forgiveness before you've established safety. Establishing safety through clear boundaries, legal action, physical distance, firm communication. That is the active step that resolves the injustice.
So once the system is secure and the threat is neutralized,
Then the internal voluntary act of forgiveness becomes psychologically possible. You achieve peace not by releasing the anger before you are safe, but by securing yourself first and then allowing the release to follow naturally. True forgiveness respects the scar from Deception 1, and it respects the boundary from Deception 6.
okay, this next deception is the ultimate human tendency toward extreme optimism, or, well, maybe sheer naivety. We desperately want to believe that when people commit malicious acts, they're simply victims of external pressures.
The scapegoat lie.
The scapegoat lie. We attribute all bad actions to poverty or job stress, bad luck, a difficult upbringing, viewing evil as an unfortunate accident of circumstance.
It's far more comfortable to believe that bad people are made, not born. Because if they're made, we can control the environment. We can fix the circumstances, and thereby we can eliminate evil.
It preserves our hopeful worldview that the world is fundamentally safe and that most people are basically good.
But the source delivers a strong and necessary counterargument. Evil is not an anomaly. It's not a sporadic event. It is an integral part of human nature. It's part of the human potential.
That is a difficult, almost unsettling truth to integrate. If evil is inherent, then what is the actual role of circumstances? We can't just deny that economic stress makes people act out.
Of course not. But circumstances do not create evil. They merely reveal it.
Reveal it.
Stress, immense power, sudden wealth, a crisis situation. They act like a high-pressure test. They strip away the veneer of politeness, of social conditioning and control, and they expose the underlying character.
So a harsh circumstance might cause an otherwise good person to make a terrible mistake out of desperation.
Right. But only the person who harbors internal malice will use that same circumstance as an excuse for genuine, sustained cruelty, for intentional harm, or for exploitation. The circumstance didn't put the malice there. It just opened the cage.
So accepting this reality that everyone, ourselves included, carries the potential for both good and evil is fundamentally necessary for our safety and for wise decision-making.
Absolutely. This is the great internal battle every single person faces. We are a house with two occupants, good and evil. The one that wins is the one that ultimately governs our behavior.
And accepting this reality doesn't mean becoming cynical or paranoid.
No, not at all. It means becoming realistic and cautious. It means judging people not by their words or their promises when they are comfortable and benefiting from a situation, but by their concrete actions and reactions when they are challenged, when they're under pressure, or when they have nothing to gain from you.
So what's the practical application of this truth? If we accept the potential for malice in everyone, how does that change our behavior day to day?
It changes two things: your resilience to betrayal and your setting of boundaries.
Okay, explain that.
If you operate under the deception that people are all innocent, then betrayal is a catastrophic shock. It often leads to self-blame or a complete collapse of your trust in the world. But if you operate under the truth that malice is possible, then when betrayal occurs, it's processed as a confirmation of a known risk, not a fundamental shock to the universe.
And that allows you to set better boundaries.
It allows you to set necessary, realistic boundaries, knowing that kindness and vulnerability must be paired with clear self-protection.
All right, deception number 8. This one is painful because, like deception 3, it often comes from a really good place. The desperate desire for peace and harmony in our relationship.
Avoidance.
Avoidance. We suppress difficult or upsetting topics, whether it's a professional disagreement or a personal resentment, just to maintain a superficial calm. We decide that silence, avoidance, and walking on eggshells are safer than confrontation.
But this avoidance mechanism, this concealment, the Arabic word is shus. It is profoundly destructive in the long term. The source warns us that concealment and silence ultimately kill relationships slowly, by 1,000 tiny cuts.
You might achieve short-term calm,
but you ensure long-term resentment, distrust, and emotional alienation. The suppressed topics don't just disappear, they become ghosts that haunt the connection. You're building this huge internal inventory of grievances.
And we so often confuse genuine intimacy with the absence of disagreement. We think a truly loving relationship means never fighting or never having to talk about uncomfortable things.
Which is the very definition of a superficial or convenience-based relationship. The deception is believing that harmony equals health.
When the truth is?
The truth is that the true measure of love or partnership is not defined by the absence of conflict, but by the capacity to overcome it together, constructively. Conflict, when it's managed correctly, is how relationships grow, is how boundaries are defined, and how trust is truly earned.
If you can only love someone when things are perfectly easy.
Is that true love, or is it merely mutual convenience?
And here is the core, almost diagnostic insight from the source on this. We know each other through the topics that upset us.
This is the crucial reality check. How a person reacts when they are challenged, contradicted, or upset reveals their true character and their fundamental commitment to the relationship. Do they withdraw? Do they attack? Or do they engage constructively?
The difficult alternative, then, requires us to cultivate the courage to open upsetting topics.
But to do so calmly and constructively.
Yeah.
It's an act of faith that the relationship is robust enough to absorb and process the necessary friction without breaking.
But that fear is so real. If I bring up this huge, upsetting issue, it might expose a fatal flaw. It might be the thing that finally ends the relationship. Why risk the comfort of the current situation?
Because the current situation, the one based on concealment, is already dying. You are merely managing the decomposition. Opening the difficult topic is not the risk, it is the test.
That's a powerful reframe.
If the relationship breaks when you bring up a necessary, honest issue calmly and constructively, then the relationship was never strong enough to serve you in the long run anyway. The pain of the breakup now is more honorable than the comfort of the drawn-out silent resentment. You have to be willing to risk the relationship for the sake of its truth.
And now we arrive at the two final deceptions. These focus on the sophisticated ways we handle communication and the weight of truth. This is often where our greatest blind spots exist because we rely so heavily on our internal justifications.
Yes, this is where it gets very subtle. And deception number 9 is perhaps the most common defense mechanism for causing harm, especially among people who see themselves as fundamentally good.
Okay, what is it?
Someone is hurt by your words or your actions or your oversight, and your first reaction is to pull out the shield of internal justification. Well, my intention, yeah, it was pure, so it's not my fault you misinterpreted it or felt hurt.
We rely solely on our pure intentions to justify our actions, no matter what the painful outcome or the effect on the other person was. We're essentially saying, the way you feel is invalid because I didn't mean for you to feel that way.
But the source establishes a firm, non-negotiable rule here. Intention is one thing, but impact, the effect, is another. And there is often a critical, measurable gap between what you intended to convey and what was actually received, understood, or felt.
And that gap is precisely where your accountability and your responsibility lie.
It is. So the rule of responsibility is clear. Good intention does not justify or excuse the harm caused.
I might have meant to hand someone a glass of water, but if I accidentally splash acid on them, my good intention doesn't negate the burning effect.
It's the perfect analogy. Intention is for your conscience, but impact is for the relationship. The external reality of the relationship operates on effect, not on your private moral feeling. When we prioritize our intention, we dismiss the other person's reality, which only compounds the original pain with invalidation.
Okay, so let's walk through the difficult alternative here. If I genuinely didn't mean to hurt someone, how can I be held accountable for the impact without feeling like I have to apologize for a motive I never even had?
This requires a very specific two-step process that's outlined in the source. And it's the difficult alternative because it forces us to prioritize their pain over our own defense.
What's step one?
Step 1. You must first apologize for the action or the effect. You start by acknowledging the pain they experienced. You say, I see that my words or my actions caused you distress, and for that effect, I am truly sorry. This validates their reality first.
Okay, so you address the impact first, then what?
Then and only then do you clarify the intention, the purpose, without attempting to justify the harmful action itself. You can say, what I meant to say was X, but I realized the way I delivered it was painful or harsh or unclear.
The power of that sequencing is crucial. You don't lead with, I didn't mean to hurt you, because that immediately minimizes their experience.
It's a defensive posture.
Right. You lead with, I'm sorry for hurting you, because that accepts responsibility for the impact. The goal is to move from self-defense to accountability.
And remember, clarifying the intention serves to prevent future miscommunication, but it never excuses the present harm. It acknowledges the complexity that you are a person with good motives who made a painful mistake, but the immediate focus has to remain on repairing the effect of that mistake on the other person. That is the hallmark of emotional maturity.
Our final deception, number 10. We are taught this absolute moral conviction. Honesty is always salvation. El cid kumanja. It creates this belief that if something is true, it must be said immediately, without any filter. And it often gives license to cruelty that's just disguised as moral righteousness.
It's the blind belief of the blunt truth teller, the person who often conflates their immediate, unfiltered opinion with some kind of sacred truth. The source reminds us that honesty is salvation, but not any honesty. Truth is a burden, and not everyone is ready or willing to hear it, nor should they be subjected to it unfiltered and ill-timed.
So the qualification here is profound. Truth without wisdom is often just destruction, or confusion, or noise. We hide behind the absolute statement of honesty to avoid the difficult work of wisdom and timing.
It is the ultimate intellectual shortcut. The difficult alternative, the necessary wisdom, requires us to employ a rigorous ethical filter before we speak. The source points us toward a framework, often attributed to Socrates, that serves as a necessary screen for every potential truth we consider sharing.
A filter.
Before speaking, you must sincerely and thoroughly ask 3 essential questions.
Question 1. Is it true? Leo. Is this statement factually accurate, verifiable, and sourced? Or is it merely my emotional opinion, a rumor, or an assumption?
And if it's the latter?
Silence is immediately the superior choice.
Exactly. Question 2. Is it good or kind? Ichia? Will saying this contribute positively to the situation? Will it elevate the conversation or comfort the person? Or is it primarily meant to wound, to undermine, or simply to prove a point, regardless of the damage?
If it fails the kindness test, the motive is usually rooted in malice or self-aggrandizement.
Yes. And question 3, which is often the most neglected. Is it necessary? Is this information required right now for action, for safety, for immediate progress, or clarity? Or is it merely gratuitous disclosure that will cause unnecessary pain or complicate a situation that is already stable?
And the power of this Socratic filter lies in the conclusion.
It does. If the answer to even one of these questions is definitively no, then silence is the wiser, more responsible choice.
So if it is true but unkind, silence is better.
If it is kind but unnecessary, silence is better.
And if it is necessary but not fully true or needs more evidence,
Silence is better. You wait.
this shifts truth-telling from an absolute moral mandate to an act of responsible stewardship.
That is the core takeaway. Truth must be delivered with wisdom at the right time and through the right channels. The difficult alternative is accepting that sometimes holding the truth, refining it, framing it, and timing its delivery is the greater act of responsibility than just releasing it in an immediate destructive burst. Wisdom requires us to accept the burden of the truth and deliver it in a way that maximizes good.
Wow. We have just conducted an intense psychological inventory, peeling back 10 layers of comfortable denial that we use to make it through the day. What this deep dive has revealed is the profound and systemic human tendency to construct these comfortable lies. These ishtilat, these decorated illusions, all to avoid confronting difficult psychological and relational truths.
We prefer to believe that time automatically fixes our wounds, that love is a guaranteed magic potion, that endless hard work is always enough, and that our pure intentions shield us from all consequences.
We cling to them.
We cling to them because the alternative confronting unresolved pain, implementing intelligent and strategic effort, establishing necessary boundaries, understanding that people react according to their own limited capacity, and exercising wisdom in our truth is demanding. It's disciplined. And it often involves immediate, uncomfortable pain.
We came here looking for the naked truth, and what we found is that truth requires action.
The ultimate takeaway from these sources is a powerful, uncompromising declaration. I think it's something that should be placed above your desk. The pain of truth is more honorable than the comfort of a deception.
To achieve genuine, lasting movement in life, you have to choose that pain.
You have to.
So, for you, the learner, the challenge we want to leave you with is intensely personal. Out of these 10 self-deceptions we've discussed, from thinking time will cure you, to believing your good intentions are enough, to suppressing necessary conflict, which one is currently the most difficult for you to give up?
Which illusion are you currently clinging to for comfort?
Identify that deception, and then ask yourself,
what necessary immediate pain does facing that specific truth require of you, starting today? That is where the real work of living begins.
until the next deep dive, thank you for choosing truth.